The war between Russia and Ukraine has been going on for a year. The announcement of the war was made on February 24 of last year. Although everyone is aware that wars last for a long time, many people had hoped that this one would be easier to resolve. Yet, as we have seen throughout the year, the war between Russia and Ukraine is getting worse. Even while there has been discussion of peace accords, such as the one made by China to stop the conflict, there are still nations that are solely affiliated with one side, making it difficult to come to a practical conclusion. There is now a partiality and conflict scenario. Tanks have been donated by some nations to help the Ukrainian people. When the United States offered to send supply tanks to Ukraine a few weeks ago, this already began. Now, more nations are standing with Ukraine and have made it plain which side of the conflict they support. In a meeting with President Zelensky in Kiev, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki made it plain that his country would support Ukrainian defense and would deliver the first Leopard tanks to Ukraine. At the same time, Poland made it clear that it disagreed with Berlin, criticizing the country for refusing to consent to the deployment of its combat vehicles to Kyiv, as Poland has always supported boosting military assistance to the little war-torn nation. Germany, on the other hand, initially showed such reluctance with the purpose of averting a catastrophic battle. But it has since dropped its intransigence to back Ukraine with tanks and armaments to defeat the Russian country. Germany wanted to prevent a catastrophic battle by helping Russia with more armaments, since it is still conscious that Russia, a nation with so many technological and nuclear advancements, is more than prepared for war. Germany decided to donate tanks to the Ukrainian nation despite its initial reservations, because it recognized the assistance that country needed. When compared to Russia, which has a large and well-equipped army, is enormous in terms of its geographic scope, and has strong allies like China, Ukraine may appear to be a small, defenseless nation. Residents of Russia and Ukraine have chosen to leave their countries since the war began and move to the nearby cities on the continent of Europe. Many Ukrainian citizens who chose to flee the country and seek asylum in other European nations did so with the assistance of the governments of those nations. Poland has aided refugees from the start of the conflict, providing shelter to Ukrainians at all costs. Over 6.8 million people had already fled Ukraine by June of last year, and as of now, about 10 million have done so, illustrating the humanitarian disaster that has erupted in the nation. Together with Poland, among the nations that have shown the most compassion for individuals seeking asylum include Germany, the Czech Republic, Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom. An economic imbalance has developed in the neighboring nations as a result of the refugee crisis. Nevertheless, the reality is that the global economy has been inflated by the war as a result of multiple international sanctions, not just the surge of refugees that caused the economic imbalance. Several causes have contributed to the global economic downturn. It should be noted that 40% of the gas consumed in Europe is exported by Russia, and the industrialized nations' economies have suffered as a result of the lack of this supply for the European Union. On the other side, Ukraine is the biggest exporter of pulses, and Russia is the second largest exporter of wheat globally. It is clear why the global economy has been impacted when considering the influence of the exports that these nations handle. Furthermore, the impact of the economic imbalance in Europe is not just felt in that region. Economic hardship has also been seen in Asia, Oceania, America, and Africa. Poor, underdeveloped nations are affected economically when the First World is under pressure. This economic blow to the underdeveloped nations is typically greater, but because they are accustomed to a lower standard of living, their complaints are typically not as loud because they are aware that they cannot do as much as the First World to end this war. One more economic issue to add to the list is the fact that Poland's oil supply has been cut off by Russia. Oil was no longer supplied through the Druzhba pipeline. This was in retribution for Poland sending tanks to support the Ukrainian military the previous day. Almost 20 million barrels of crude oil are exported by Russia each month to the European Union, But since December 2022, Moscow has threatened to stop exporting those goods. Russia has made it clear that anyone who aids its adversaries will not receive oil. Poland has emphasized that it is ready to cover that oil from other sources now that supplies have been cut off in February 2023. For instance, PKN Orlen CEO Daniel Obajtek stated on the social media platform Twitter that Poland only receives 10% of crude oil, meaning it will not be difficult to find an alternative supply source. He added that such a pause would not hinder the company's ability to supply its clients with gasoline and diesel. Russia's monopoly on oil transportation pipes was created by Tatneft, a Russian oil and gas firm. The fact that Joe Biden, President of the United States, visited both Warsaw and Kiev to express his support and solidarity with Ukraine after a year of conflict is another noteworthy aspect of the recent suspension of oil supply. The European Union added a set of penalties against Russia last Friday. Russian fuels and seaborne oil were no longer purchased by Orlen, a European corporation that trades petroleum products and refines oil. It now asserts that its supplies come from oil in the Mediterranean, the Gulf of Mexico, and West Africa. Also, they agreed to a contract for 2022 with Saudi Aramco, a Saudi Arabian oil firm based in Dhahran. Poland does not require Russian oil because the maritime supplies arrive through an oil terminal that receives more oil than Polish refineries can process. Hence, European countries impacted by Russian retaliation can demonstrate that their lack of oil won't leave them defenseless or result in irreversible harm. Mateusz Berger, Poland's state secretary in charge of strategic energy, stated, "Customers won't experience any impact, since Orlen has been preparing for this for months, given Naftaport's capacity and the fact that we also have other channels to import motor fuels." It is undeniable that Russia's response to the West's assistance for Ukraine in the form of Germany and Poland led to the outbreak of this entire crisis. Many inequalities between countries are expanding as a result of the war. It has been a year since this dreadful battle began, which has only hurt the victims, particularly Ukrainians, who have been the target of the bombings and have sustained the greatest amount of bodily pain and fatalities. Is there any hope left? Meetings between representatives of the ground states to negotiate a deal are ongoing. China has high aspirations for international peace. They seek to develop security as a result of peaceful unity, which many diplomats from other nations have questioned, but others have maintained the optimistic assumption that it is possible to do so. With thousands of victims suffering in silence for more than 365 days, the conflict has now resulted in attrition. One of Ukraine's worst dreams in decades became a reality when war broke out last year. The news of this battle was widely reported in the press at the time, and it still shocks people today. The great powers of the world have rallied around Ukraine, while Russia has been forced to fight by itself in a conflict that appears to be deviating daily from its original goal of showcasing its military might and annexing Ukrainian territory. The crucial historical question now is, how has the Russian country withstood economic sanctions? This has occurred as a result of the foreign exchange funds that have been accumulated throughout time. But that's not all. Russia's talks with Asia also aid in its survival. Russia and numerous international agencies are battling to stop the momentum that is being sustained. For the time being, Putin has seen his allegedly impending victory over Ukraine reversed. War analysts have noted that it is challenging to bring this battle to a potential conclusion since each side uses all of its resources to defend its position, making it impossible for any potential solutions to succeed. Ultimately, we may draw the conclusion that Russia is sticking to its commitment to stop delivering oil as a clear indication that it does not want the war to end after creating a new area of unrest and making explicit its retaliation against the countries that have joined in backing Ukraine. Will this conflict continue indefinitely, or will the world's governments and organizations be able to pressure Russia to come to a settlement and end the conflict? To this, there is still no conclusive response. The perspectives of many political scientists and commentators on the subject continue to differ. the former peace treaty that China suggested, in which a solution is sought that is not only viable, but also enduring because of agreements signed by both parties, has some experts predicting that this war may soon come to an end. Yet, there are some experts who predict the contrary. This fight may continue for a decade or two, according to a statement made by the British Foreign Ministry last year. The concerning aspect is that if this continues for an extended period of time, cities may be entirely demolished and ruined. You can already witness the enormous harm done to Ukraine, the destruction in Kyiv, and the misery of the people. The amount of economic and food instability, which has increased significantly, has shocked the Ukrainian people's ability to survive. Additionally, according to Andreas Umland, a researcher at the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies, it seems unlikely that the war can end with an armistice, let alone a comprehensive political settlement, after the official Russian annexations of 4 regions of Ukrainian territory in September 2022. Too much is at risk politically and legally for both parties to agree to compromises. The level of Western military backing for Ukraine will have a significant impact on how long the conflict lasts. By cutting off supply routes to Crimea by land, the Kerch Bridge and the sea, Ukraine might recapture all of the seized regions taken in September, as early as 2023, if this support is unshakable. This final clause may be the one that compels Russia to consent to a limited deal. Yet it's unclear how much support the West will be able and willing to give Ukraine. Although it appears that some form of support will continue, it is currently unknown how much and how well this help will be provided. It is hoped that Kyiv would be able to put an early stop to Russia's occupation of Ukrainian territory with the right kind and amount of military backing. We must either wait for upcoming developments and international movements towards Russia from this point forward, or keep a lookout for this enormous country to undertake another retaliation attack. For the sake of the global economy and the survival of the Ukrainian people, the war must end. What do you think? Will Russia soon abandon its intention to invade Ukraine, or will it continue the conflict for however long it sees fit? Comment below with your thoughts and let us know what you think. Thank you for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for more exciting content related to the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia.